It's Jim Check with Kelowna Now, and today we have with us Breanne Muir with Transport Canada. Did I say that right?
Breanne Muir, yeah.
There you go. And we're going to talk about boating safety as we come into the summer holiday season, and see if we can help get the message out there to reduce some of those boating accidents.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it's such an important topic, and the Okanagan Lake tends to have quite a few of these incidents. How do you want to start?
So they do, yes, unfortunately. And that's why boating safety is so important and something that we talk about right now in May, especially from May till September, is when we see the most incidents and deaths. And that's why we want to take the time in the beginning of summer to talk about boating safety and how people can be safe on the water, and what they can do.
And how it relates to the Okanagan, especially. So, Okanagan Lake has the title of the BC's Deadliest Lake, and having 30 of those boating deaths in the past. From 2012 to 2022, Okanagan Lake in lake deaths is the top lake. And in the Okanagan itself, 63 of the 90 deaths in that time frame. So 70% of those are on Okanagan Lake. So such a relevant topic for us in the Okanagan here.
Very much so. And a lot of the times when my group has looked into a little more information on those incidents, the close calls and the deaths that have occurred, we found that operation and not being safe while operating is one of the biggest reasons behind those incidents that occur. So it's very important for boaters to remember to operate safely. These lakes, especially Okanagan Lake in the summer, is extremely busy. And boaters need to remember that they need to pay attention to what's around them, operate at a safe speed so they can avoid collisions with other vessels, other boaters, whether that's human power, or just other power boaters in general. So always be safe and operate at a safe speed.
And I take it being safe is try not to be under the influence, and also life jackets, I take it is one of the biggest concerns, right?
Very important topics. So boating sober is not only important to keep everyone safe on the water, it's extremely dangerous if people are operating a vessel under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and it is illegal. The same penalties apply for operating under the influence as they do with, say, a car. The same applies to boats as well.
So what are the laws around boating, like in Okanagan Lake, for drinking on the lake? Obviously, if you're driving the boat, you're not allowed to be under the influence, so zero alcohol for that. But what about other people in the boats?
That is also the same as if similar to if you were driving a car, the same rules apply. There should be no open containers of alcohol on a vessel. The only vessels that are allowed to have open containers and drinking on board are those that are anchored. They have a toilet facility and a sleeping quarters, which
Right.
for a lot of vessels on Okanagan Lake, that's not going to apply.
Right. So those are the bigger, larger boats that have that, can stay out there for a couple of days kind of thing, right? Not small, kind of like wakeboard boats and stuff like that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And then some of the other rules we see in the Okanagan Lake, lots of times we see over capacity boats though, too, right? When you have tons of young people on a wakeboard boat and stuff like that too. And obviously a lot of alcohol and stuff like that too. And likely not enough life jackets.
Yes. Going back to your point on life jackets, we find that when we look at the incidents that are occurring, the deaths, the near misses, 80% of the time, the individuals who are involved in those were not wearing a life jacket. So not only is it important to carry those life jackets on board, but make sure that people are wearing them while the boat is in operation.
Yeah. So, and we seem to be seeing those numbers go up. I look at these charts here. It seems to be that we're increasing, and obviously maybe that's due to the level of activity in the lakes as well.
Yes, people, since COVID, we've seen a large increase in people who are getting out there and enjoying boating and learning about it and buying vessels, and which is a good thing when it's done safely. it can be such an enjoyable thing to do, being out on the water with your family in the summer and enjoying the weather and the water. But when it's done safely, if it's done and it's not done properly, safety equipment isn't involved, people are operating not safe, it can be very dangerous.
And it seems to be skewed towards young males that tend to lead the accidents and deaths. Is that because they're higher risk takers and tend to consume more alcohol?
We see that those are mostly the individuals that are heading out on the water and enjoy boating the most, is the males. And it's actually males from the age of mid 20s to about 60 is where we're seeing the most incidents. So I don't want to disclude the older males that head out on the water to enjoy fishing. Sometimes we see that those individuals go out by themselves. Maybe they're not wearing a life jacket, and if something happens, they could be in a lot of trouble. But yes, the younger males is when maybe operation comes into play and they're not operating the vessel at a safe enough speed to avoid other vessels or collisions. So if you're going out, you're in that age group, just remember to be safe. Remember to operate your vessel with care and be aware of what's going on around you.
Okanagan Lake also can get some pretty big waves with whitecaps and stuff like that, and smaller vessels tend to get thrown around quite a bit. I can remember myself even, like, I think it was like 20 years ago out there, and I had an 18-foot cuddy cabin, and I was by myself, and I was trying to move it from one part of the lake to the other part of the lake, and if that was an open bow, that thing would have been swamped a few times, right? So
exactly.
the whitecaps, if there's whitecaps, I think that's a good time to take your boat in, unless you have a very large vessel out there.
That's very true. And we always tell people that they need to plan ahead. So even before you take your boat onto the water, if you're launching, make sure that you take a look at what's going on the weather today. Can your boat handle that? Especially if it's a smaller boat, like you're saying, or even the human powered vessels, kayaks, canoes, stand-up paddleboards. You don't want to be out there and then have that shift in weather and not be able to make it safely back to shore.
Is there like a top 10 list that you have for boating safety? Like, some of it's pretty common sense, but I mean, obviously the driver of the boat's supposed to have a license unless he's renting a boat, I guess, but like, he's supposed to get a boating license.
So we have a lot of information in the Canadian Safe Boating Guide. This is free and available online on our Transport Canada website. It's a great place to learn about all the different topics having to do with safe boating. As for your point on operating and when you need certain certification, anytime someone is operating a motorized vessel, doesn't matter the size of the motor, it could be even a little electric motor all the way to a big motor, they need to be able to show proof of competency. And the most common form of proof of competency is those pleasure craft operator cards. They're the little blue cards that you get, and it shows you've taken a boating safety course and basically you know how to operate the vessel.
Yeah, because there's some basic requirements when you go out on the water, having a life jacket for everybody, having a horn or a whistle or something like that, a paddle, and no alcohol in the boat unless it happens to be stored in a proper boat like that has a cuddy cabin or a toilet facility. And then just even talking to the people on the boat to make sure that they're prepared for an emergency, where the life jackets are and that type of thing.
Exactly. And how to use that safety equipment, right? What if the person who owns and operates the vessel, what if they're the one that is in trouble? You do need to make sure, like you said, that someone else on board or some of your guests know how to use that safety equipment. Some other pieces of safety equipment that you didn't mention: buoyant heaving line to retrieve a person if they fall overboard, the reboarding device to get back onto the boat, fire extinguisher for certain boats that are of a certain size. That's why it's the Safe Boating Guide has a list of that safety equipment that you would be needing to have on board your vessel. It's a great resource to see, do I have everything? Another point would be that if you don't have that safety equipment, you do face a fine for each piece of safety equipment that you are missing.
And we'll link that safety guide in our story here too. We'll put a link to that story, or that guide there. And is there any alarming trends that you're seeing other than with boating safety? Are people becoming less kind of vigilant, or is part of that onus on the people that sell boats too, just to make sure people are well versed in what they're doing?
The onus is on the individual who is operating the vessel. So once they get that boat on the water and you have people on board, or even just yourself, you need to make sure that you are operating your vessel safe. And you need to take the priority to learn what that means, not just taking that boating safety course to get your competency card, but review it. Remind yourself, what are the rules of the road? How do I navigate around other vessels? Am I operating too fast? Things like that. It is the responsibility of the operator.
And I think people need to take it seriously, because obviously 63 deaths in the Okanagan Lakes from 2012 to 2022. And you're coming on a holiday and stuff like that, and you're out there on the water trying to enjoy yourself. Nobody wants to become part of that statistic, right? But it seems like it's a hard lesson for some people, right?
Yes, very much so. Something else that I find is common for the Okanagan area is that those vessels, and we were talking earlier about wake boats, they might not know that they are actually responsible for also the wake that their boat causes. So if their wake is causing damage to people's property or capsizing other vessels on the water, they could be held responsible for that as well. And it could also be considered careless operation.
Yeah, one of the things I see every now and then is those sea-doos out there too, and then they'll get in behind a wakeboard boat and they'll start jumping over their wake and stuff like that. And obviously, there's people out there on wakeboards, and that's kind of dangerous too. And then these things are buzzing around and they hit each other sometimes, and that causes some real problems as well.
Very much so. And that situation you just described is one of the most dangerous things that I have seen as well. Um, with the sea-doos and the jet skis, they need to really understand that careless operation means, that zigzagging pattern across the water and across, especially behind wake boats. And when wake boats are pulling someone, that is extremely dangerous. Of course, another thing is you need to be at least 16 to use those jet skis and sea-doos. And you need to also make sure you have your proof of competency as well.
So if you operate a vessel, if you own the vessel, you have to have a license. But if you go to rent one, you don't need to have a license. Do we find any stats in there that say that there's more accidents there, or are they educated as they go out there on those rentals?
So when you have individuals who are renting a pleasure craft and getting that rental safety checklist to take the vessel out, there is a safety briefing that is taking place. Those rental companies need to be doing that safety briefing and making sure that the people they're renting their boats to have that understanding of how to navigate in this busy summer Okanagan waterway. So it can be a little bit nerve-wracking when you have someone who might not be as familiar renting a vessel, but it's the responsibility of the rental company and the renter to learn what they need to do to stay safe on the water as well.
Yeah, I'm going to make a suggestion here. For those that are looking to rent a vessel, there are captain vessels out there that I think you'd be better off with, especially if you never operated a wakeboard boat, because they're quite powerful. And if you're unsure of how, and they don't maneuver like a car. So I would suggest maybe renting a captain boat, and then you have that trained captain on the boat, and then you can enjoy the water, right?
Very much so, yes. Those individuals who are operating as a captain have that extra training as well to take passengers out. So it's a great alternative if you want to get out on the water.
Is there anything you want to add as we close this discussion off?
I guess the last and most important thing is just not just to have your life jackets, but wear them. That 80% stat where we find that people involved weren't wearing a life jacket is huge. And wearing a life jacket, especially while the boat is underway or moving and in operation, it can save your life in those, when an incident happens, that could be the difference between life and death.
Yeah, because This lake is deep and dark, and if somebody goes overboard, it's you only have a split second to do something, right? Like, because we had an RCMP member lose their life a few years back too, right? Because of all the gear they had on, and it's very hard once they get very deep for you to even find them, right? So wearing that life jacket all the time makes a lot of sense, right? You may look silly, or you may be interrupting your tan or whatever that is, but you're better off being safe than sorry.
100%. Yeah, exactly. Wear your life jackets.
Wear your life jackets. That's a great message, and try to avoid the alcohol till you're back on shore.
Yeah.
I thank you for taking the time today, Breanne, and thank you for being with us, and thank you to Transport Canada as well, and thank you for watching Kelowna Now.